Josephine McShane, whom the Lord has called from this life to himself. We pray the Lord to be merciful in judging her and grant her eternal rest in his kingdom. We also pray for those who mourn her absence today.
Alleluia.
As for me, my life has already been poured away as a libation, and the time has come for me to be gone. I have fought the good fight to the end. I have run the race to the finish. I have kept the faith. All there is to come now is the crown of righteousness reserved for me.
Joni has finally reached the shore of eternity. Now that all Joni's earthly tasks are completed, may she enjoy rest from all her labours. Lord, hear us.
Lord, graciously hear us.
Joni fought the good fight. She finished the race. She kept the faith. May she now receive from Christ the crown of eternal glory, which he won for us with his death and resurrection. Lord, hear us.
Lord, graciously hear us.
That the hardships and suffering Joni endured in her life may gain for her full remission of all her sins. Lord, hear us.
Lord, graciously hear us.
You see me with this big book that you don't think I'm going to keep you too long, so I'll try and be as brief as I can. It's also very helpful if I can find my place. Here we are. Well, basically what I really want to do is to, at this point, just to thank all of you for coming here today and being with us to celebrate Joni's life. And I'm also aware that joining us through the wonders of the internet, we have quite a number of other people who are here with us, not physically but spiritually and in spirit. And all Joni's nieces and nephews, a lot of them around the world, are with us today, and I want to mention them. For example, our son John is tuned into this ceremony in New Zealand. And we welcome him and all those others. Our daughter Emma is in Canada, in Edmonton, in Canada, with her family there. And our son Joe is in France with his wife Anna. It's okay. Joan Quintana is in Madrid, and Katie Nolan, her sister, is in Murcia in Spain. And their brother, Podrick, lives near St. Louis in Missouri in USA. He's with us too, as is my first cousin, Esther Quinn, in New York. And then in England, coming back nearer home, there are the McShane family. John Peter, his brother Matthew, their sister Mary McShane. They're all in Windermere, and I'm told that they are with us today as well. And of course, many more people that we really don't know, but local people here who tune in regularly to this facility, this service from this church. They may well be with us too, and I welcome all of those as well. My sister Joni met Jim McShane in this area. I just want to reflect for a little while on Joni's life. But Joni met Jim and was introduced to this area, and for such a long time there was always a balance to be had between Dundalk and Newry, and the border issue and all that. But people still met and fell in love and got married from one side of the border or the other. And they went out together and as a normal couple, and their relationship flourished. Joni worked at the time for the Inland Revenue. That's another polite term for the dreaded tax man. And Jim worked for British Rail in Dublin. And the jobs they had, offered them the opportunity to move away from here and go to London. And so they did. They decided to marry, of course. They came back here and married in Newry, in St. Bridget's in Newry. And forgive me. Yeah. They did what was perfectly normal at that time. They moved from the church in Newry, took us all the way down to Castle Bellingham, which was quite a thriving place at that time with a hotel there, and they had their wedding reception there. And then after that, of course, they left and moved back to London, and they had set up home in Sidcup in Kent. And they started into the daily routine of going to work and travelling in and out of London, the daily commute. But the reality was, all of that time, their hearts were back home here in Newry, Carlingford and Greenore. But like many other Irish couples in England, they joined a Catholic club there where they had social activities and entertainment, and they met people that they knew, and it was a great way of keeping in touch with home. But all the time their dream was to plan for their retirement here in Ireland, and of course the chosen place was around Carlingford, Greenore. And when they were here, they were always had an eye out for a site. to build their home, to build their retirement home. And lo and behold, their sister Maura, who's sitting down there beside us, came to their rescue. And she had seen there was some suggestion that there would be a plot of land, a field, down at, what do you call it? Pardon? North Commons. Yeah, that's where I was missing. North Commons. Maura knew that there was a possibility that there was a field there that they could get. And so the negotiations took part with Peather Elmore, who owned the field. And Peather was quite a character around the area. And I remember Jim telling me about the negotiations that took place over measuring out the plot of land that they would get. And Peather, of course, great character that he was, you know, there was a lot of haggling about where the line would be and all that. And I love the story that Jim told about what Peather said was, he said, look, Jim, I lost the sight of one of my eyes. And he says, I can assure you, he says, that someone who has a man who has only one eye can see a straight line far better than a man who has two eyes. And therefore, I know exactly where the line is to go. And I remember Jim said to me afterwards, he says, how do you answer that sort of situation? He says, there just is no answer to that. And he said, the result of it was that the line was drawn, the decision was made, they did the deal, and they bought the field and set about building the house that they have had for the last 20 years. So, I've lost my place here a little bit, but their life began when they started into getting all the details that were necessary. And the thing that they were trying to do was work in London and get the job done here in Ireland, over in Carrick, in North Commons. So that was their dream home, and eventually it came into reality. And a magnificent sight overlooking Carlingford Lough, with the Mourns on the other side, and Slieve Foy as a backdrop. Now, where would you get a more beautiful situation than that? Anyway, they retired and moved back home and set up house there. And they began to live their dream. And for more than 20 years, they lived in one of the most beautiful sites anywhere in this country, looking down on Carlingford Lough. And their life rotated around themselves and their house and their home. Jim, the gardener, absolutely spent all his time in the garden. And of course, Joni brought in all the backup. She looked after the house and all the daily requirements of living. And they truly actually began to live their dream. However, sadly, about 5 years ago, that dream was cruelly broken when Jim died suddenly. And that dream of theirs was broken. It was deeply wounded. And Joni was adrift without Jim, her anchor in life. She was effectively rudderless. And life didn't really make any sense anymore for her. She was alone in a world that was to her losing its meaning. And I didn't know it at the time, but since Jim died, the crisis for her was enormous. And what I didn't realise was that she was slowly but surely drifting into dementia. And finally, that dementia completely overtook her life and overwhelmed her. And I have learned through all my contact with Joni that dementia is a cruel and horrible disease. It robs people of their dignity and their ability to function normally in this world. And during that time, as Joni was progressing through the stages of dementia, I was trying to help, but frankly, I just simply didn't understand. And I feel really, really guilty because so often I was critical and thinking of her being difficult and being awkward, when in actual fact it was the dementia that was increasingly taking over her life. And I have a feeling of great guilt, and I need to sort of admit that I could have done a great deal more for her. But it progressed, and right up to very recently, she actually got to the stage where she was clearly losing the battle. And she was eventually moved to the hospital in Drogheda, and finally then she was taken to the step-down facility in the Louth in Dundalk, and lastly to the care home in Carlingford, where I have to say she was treated beautifully. She was looked after. They couldn't have done enough for her, and she was very, very well cared for. But, while she faced all that difficulty of anxiety and insecurity that comes with dementia, I tried to get through to her, but it was extremely difficult. And finally, she lost the battle. And on Thursday morning, she finally succumbed and she died. But while it is a story of happiness and sadness, in reality, there is a happy end to the story. It has a happy ending. Joni is now where she wanted to be for all those last 3 or 4 years that she suffered dementia. She is where she wanted to be. She is at peace, and she is in the company of her partner in life, Jim. And today, we bring her body here to this church, and subsequently to the grave where she will have her final wish fulfilled, and that is to be buried side by side with Jim here in Boher forever. This is where she really, finally wanted to be. I just want to say, in conclusion, thank you all for being with us, showing us your support, and giving us the courage to just try and cope with her loss. thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
The stars of night, I will make their darkness bright. Who will bear my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will